That's different about a burger.
Right.
Test.
Oh, that was good.
Yes.
Try that again. Tap that.
Is mine working? So can we go forward?
Test. You have to speak loud.
Oh, that works when you go with it.
Yeah.
A lot of hot air.
Speak for yourself.
Work on YouTube.
Yeah, it's working on YouTube. It's working on YouTube.
All right, so let's go. It's working on YouTube.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to reconvene the open session at 6:29. We all stand for the pledge of
Allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
To leave this room safely, you head out the back door and you can exit to your left or to your right.
Mrs. Dos Widow, if you could honor us with reading the mission statement of Coventry Public Schools.
The mission of Coventry Public Schools is to inspire, support, challenge all students in an inclusive community to be critical thinkers, effective communicators, and reflective learners, responsible individuals, and global citizens.
Thank you. And just to report out to the public, our executive sessions started around 6 o'clock. We went for about 20 minutes. The committee reviewed the school crisis emergency plans, and we also took 2 votes to approve the student matters, the homeschool request, and approval of executive session minutes from 10/13/2022. Both of those votes were unanimous, 4-0. That being said, I have a motion to seal the minutes from the minutes of executive session. Go ahead. No, you go.
I make a motion to seal the minutes of the executive session.
Thank you. I second the motion. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries 4-0. Moving on to the approval of our minutes from 10/13/2022. Is there a motion? Make a motion to approve the minutes of 10/13/2022 as presented.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? Chair votes aye, any opposed? We ask that motion carries 4-0. Moving into the public agenda. Agenda items are open for discussion. If there are any votes that we, or motions that we make to have a vote before we actually call, before I call for the vote, I will let the public have input and ask questions or comments about that agenda item. That being said, we'll move to the first public agenda item, which is the celebration. School committee member acknowledgement of years of school committee members, acknowledgement of years of service. I'm going to turn that over to you, Mr. Powell.
It is. So we have 2 school committee members who are rotating off of the school committee. There's an election, obviously, in November. And being unsure of exactly when you would rotate off the committee and new members would rotate on, I thought I would put this agenda on now to be safe, even though you may attend another meeting, who knows, or 2. But I wanted to acknowledge your service to the school committee, to the community today. So first for Donna. So Donna has been on the school committee for 8 years. She basically jumped in when the District 3 school committee seat was vacated. Her kids were off at college, and she stepped in because she wanted to give back to the community. And she had many priorities. One of the most important ones was all-day kindergarten, which she was part of the committee that was able to achieve that. So thank you for that, Donna. Donna and her family moved to Coventry in 1995 with her kids. Her husband reports that coming to Black Rock School and living in the Coventry School District was very important to them because of the excellent of the school. Her focus has always been her career, but her number one focus is her kids. She has children that were very important to her. She never missed open house. She went to all the different events at her school so that she could stay tied to their learning. Education is very important. And she was on the first name basis with all the different teachers and principals and administrators that she had come in contact with in her time in Coventry. She served on the Talent Assessment Board of Review for 2 or 3 years. And she also served on the bylaw subcommittee for a number of years, and she served on the superintendent's evaluation subcommittee for a few years. So we have a certificate for Donna Clunian, and it says for dedicated leadership in public education and continuing service to the children of this community. Thank you for your extraordinary service in helping Coventry's children thrive. And then I signed it. So thank you for your service. I just wanted to acknowledge Donna.
Thank you for being my dais leader. And really thank you for your dedication to this. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you over this time.
Same here. I really enjoyed sitting next to you. Our different conversations.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Mrs. Dos Reis Cuda.
I'm always here. I'm always here.
Again, thank you so much for being dedicated public servant for this community, the years of service, the years of participation in PTA on a local level at Black Rock, and just continuing and feeling like you've had a mission in your heart to help and stay where you could, which that's the best we can ask from anybody. That's right. And so you always, when you spoke your mind, I always,
I do was a good my mind.
Certainly, I agree with what you said. So I'm very, very grateful. Sure. So we'll put it out to the public first, and then we'll let you say something. So anyone in the public want to speak?
Like to come up? Yes.
Yes, Mr. Lewis.
I know you preferential treat all the rules.
Just make sure that mic's on.
Yeah.
Just switch it on.
So I just want to say thank you. Obviously, when I first came on board, we were one of the school committee members, and in terms of speaking your mind, I appreciate that. I tend to be very direct myself. It gets me in a lot of trouble at times, but I appreciate the opportunity and never be blindsided. I appreciate that. And, I know my 6 and some odd years is probably the most challenging years of my life, but also the most rewarding. And I want to thank you because you've been a big part of that. I've been through a lot of challenging times and a lot of great times. And like I said, I appreciate your candor, your commitment. I watch other school committee meetings. I don't have much of life at times, and I'm very proud of the work that's been accomplished here. And like I said, I'll speak on behalf of Kathy a little bit, but I just want to say thank you. Bottom of my heart, you've been a big part of my last 6.5 years.
Thank
And a blessing to this community too. Thank you.
Anyone else in the community? Okay.
Well, I gotta say, I've learned a lot in 8 years. A lot. Kathy, you were a big part of that. You were a very good mentor. I had no clue what I was getting into. No clue at all. And my eyes were wide open. My second term, I feel, was better because I was able to understand what my role should be and what I needed to do. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to serve and to help my constituents.
Okay, nobody else before we move on to me?
The last thing I'll say about Donna before I move on to Kathy is Donna, you're very hot, very hot. You always go out of your way to say, principal did a good job, the teacher did a good job, you're doing a good job. And sometimes when we're in the middle of things and we're questioning every single decision we make, it's nice to have somebody say, you're doing.
I know what that feeling's like, and I try to do that as much as possible.
Well, we appreciate it.
Because 5 years.
Kathy, I'd like to say just something quick.
Sure.
I have to get up.
Yes,
Yeah.
sure.
Sorry, John.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you. Support of administration and teachers and doing what's right for kids.
All right, moving on to the next person. Kathy. So I was able to reach out to some of your friends at the Rhode Island Association of Schools. So they gave me some information. You have quite the resume. In terms of your PTA involvement, you have served on the Coventry Council as their president from 1999 to 2002. You were the vice president from 2001 to 2002. You were a legislative chair. 2002 to 4, you were the president-elect from 2003 to 2005. You were the president from 2005 to 2007, and then you've been membership extension liaison from 2007 to present. So very involved in the PTA. You've been very involved with the Rhode Island Association of School Committees. You've been executive committee member since 2009. You have been on the board since 2009. You served in many capacities, including the president. You've also represented the association at the national level, and you've worked with national board associations. You're the past recipient of the Rhode Island Association of School Committees Howard K. Award for Outstanding School Committee Leadership. You hold the highest number of school committee PD hours in the state at 585 total hours. You've been exemplary member of that association and that board. You've gone above and beyond, in your approach, how you work with their association, and you're somebody they say they can always count on. In terms of our committee, if I have all these numbers correctly, Kathy was a member of the school committee at first from 2002 to 2004. You became the vice chair in 2004 to 2006, and then you became the chair in 2008, and you've been the chair since 2008 to today, to present. So we have for you also a certificate for Catherine Badnote for dedicated leadership in public education and continuing service to the children of this community. Thank you for your extraordinary service in helping Coventry children thrive.
So I guess we'll stop with Mr. Pearson. Any nice words?
No, I mean, I think I said this before. But thank you also for 20+ years service to this community, specifically to the school community. 585,000. No, really, though, thank you. Your presence will be greatly missed. It will be missed. So I wish you, and I should have said this to God, well, I wish you both nothing but the best in your future endeavors. Don't be a straight. We may end up calling on you for advice. Yeah.
Like I said, just listen to that resume. You were such a great mentor. You were the steady, calm person when I was crazy. So, no, seriously. When, I was like all over the place, right? Just, you were always that calming voice and just what you gave back to everybody. It's unparalleled. I done so much with you. And I'm sure that everybody is grateful.
Oh, I've said this before, Kathy, you're not going anywhere in my book. Sure. So thank you for your service once again. Being so dedicated and stories, traveling. But thank you so much for everything you've done. And also, sounding board. Being school committee, yes, sometimes people say you should know it all. And it's experience that brings us to succeed. It's experience that brings us to continue. And we help each other.
All right, anybody in the public want to say anything? Mr. Lutz.
So last night I was at the retirement party for Miss Virginia Harnois. So I think she had like 36 years. So close second. Anyways, I've been blessed. Ms. Harnois, who was the chair of the Smithfield School Committee, was the one that pulled me in and asked me to sit up with the school committee. And that was like in 2003. And I was very fortunate because that's when I realized that I wanted to end my career or spend the last few years of my career as a superintendent. But when I think of you, by the way, I gave a plaque. Just want to say, but I'm really nice to say really nice. Sorry. Anyways, I'm sure what's coming, but no, I just think of support that I came on board, and I'll say this, like this has been the most incredible time of my life in terms of professionally here, but it's also been a challenge. Many of those self-imposed, when I learned to get out of my own way, life can be good, but that's not always easy. But I look at you as just, I bounce things off of you and you never, ever, said that you might say slow down a bit or make sure you think it through, but you will always support, right? So I never shied from calling you, running things by you. But I also understood your leadership style and you empowered the entire committee. You didn't, as the chair, your role was equal with others, and I respected that. But I think there was so much that we were able to do, even redefining leadership. That leadership was not top down. You empowered us, and we saw that during the committee, but during the pandemic, one of the few committees that empowered the administration with the other experts to make decisions, take it out of the political arena, but also in terms of leadership here. When we talk about leadership in Coventry, it's about teacher leadership. It's about the leadership of our families, our students, and of course of the administrators and the governance of the school committee. But I look at you as allowing us to put that in place. And, like I said, I can't imagine where I would be if you weren't the chair. And again, it's nothing against anybody, but just your leadership and your support of me as an individual. People love you in good times, right? People always, but it's when you're down and you're troubled and you're questioning your own ability. I think that's where I look for strength from others. We talk a lot about charismatic adults, and it's people, adults that children draw strength from. And I have to say that I know in my life, and it's been many community members, but you were a charismatic adult for me. Times when I felt like, maybe I'm not the right person, I'm getting those messages, and you would be there and say, hey, you've got this. And I just want to say thank you. Appreciate it.
Anyone else?
Of course, I'll have to say something.
Just one last word.
No, just quick, I'm happy you've been here since I've been here, so it's been a while. And you've always been very supportive. John, I think you've been a great role model for administration, teachers, and especially for our students, especially students before the school committee, leaders, young leaders. You're always very supportive. And I just wish you luck and thank you.
My final remarks is basically that I'm so, I learned a lot on this job. I think like Donna said, you come on board expecting you don't even know, but you find out that there's so much learning to do. And I'm 100%, I believe in PD. Oh, yes, obviously. And I learned a lot. And I was, blessed to be able to go to the national meetings, even in PTA, as well as the National School Board Association meetings, and attend PD, just like what we encourage our students and administrators to do. It's really an important part of staying relevant with your role as a leader. So I thank everyone that helped me grow as a school committee member, because it's not the easiest job. And most times when I tell people, in 20 years, they go, "You have rocks in your head." It's like it's a tough political job. But I always felt that this committee really didn't act political. We always tried to do what was right for kids, teachers, staff, administrators, everybody. And so I feel like I hope I made a difference. And just appreciate everybody's support and who's doing it, but you have to move on and give new people the opportunity to serve and be leaders. I'll never regret being part of this community, and moving out of Coventry, I'll keep tabs. I'm just going out here. So I've got friends in Cranston who say, "Do you want to run in Cranston?" And I go, "No, I don't think so." Anyway, but again, thank you so much. Thank you for the recognition. I really, really appreciate it. Okay. Moving on to the Human Resources Assessment and Presentation. And are you gonna take that?
Yeah, I'll just get us started. So when Marvin Card left the position, we posted, we interviewed, we couldn't find candidates that really met our needs as a human resource director for a school department. You met Paul Vision, he jumped in as a retired director and has worked part-time as interim to help us move along. And one of the things that he identified fairly early on that I agreed with 100% was we needed to do a needs assessment. And so what he did was he crafted a process, and he's going to explain that to you. And he interviewed a number of people, and the results of that needs assessment is going to be presented to you. You have the packet, but he's going to present it to you. And we're going to use that as sort of like our baseline, because then we're going to probably come forward again at the next meeting to talk about how we're going to staff that department so that we can continue to move forward. So, Paul?
First of all, I'd like to congratulate both of you. It's not easy following this light item that you just had, so, but congratulations, and it sounds like the district has been very fortunate to have you serve for as many years as you have. So it's a pleasure being here tonight. It's also been really a pleasure for me to work in the district for the past 10 days. I've met some great people, very dedicated people, and I'm sure I'm not telling any of you anything different. So as Don said, I came to Greg and John maybe 3 weeks into my time in Coventry, and in addition to trying to assist the department in moving forward and meeting its needs, I really asked, what else could I do to serve the department long term? And within the first 3 weeks, I certainly saw some great things going on, but I also saw some needs where I thought that maybe we dug a little deeper. We could together craft a future for the department. So again, the purpose was really to assess the HR department's practices and procedures, systems. I was really looking at the systems that the district has in place in order to efficiently and effectively address the personnel needs of the district, its schools and departments. HR, and I've worked in a number of departments, HR is really, in my opinion, a critical department because it serves not only the schools, but other departments. So we're in a position where we need to meet the needs of a variety of stakeholders. So I thought it was important to look at both the procedures and practices of the system. And the way I wanted to go about it is to really do a cross-section, interview a cross-section of stakeholders who would identify the strengths and needs of the department and offer practical action steps to improve its efficiency and effectiveness. And finally, I included a cross-section of stakeholders who would have an opportunity to describe a leadership style along with the education and employment background that would benefit the district and the next director of human resources. And the way I saw this is, we know that we're in a crisis in terms of identifying people in education. Certainly the district had some difficulties finding a match for this full-time position. So I thought that it might be useful to talk with stakeholders about who would be the ideal leader, the next ideal leader who would serve the district. So I conducted a number of interviews with a set of questions. I interviewed a cross-section of people. I interviewed 4 central office employees. Certainly the 3 members of my department, terrific women who have been very dedicated. I interviewed the 2 union presidents, along with the building principal. So I felt like I have, and I was always in consultation with Don and Craig in crafting the assessment. Through this process and through the interviews and data collection, I really identified 4 themes. One is, and we're going to be talking more about that, the knowledge, procedures, and practices of the department, both needs and recommendations, staff recruitment, staff hiring process, and communication. So those are the four areas that really I identified from all the conversations I had, all the data that I collected. Next. So the first is knowledge, procedures, and practice. The knowledge and implementation of procedures and practices related to payroll, benefits, and personal management have been informally developed over time by the employees in these positions. So there's a great amount of institutional knowledge in the district, in the department, to meet the needs of the district. And that's good that we have this institutional knowledge. What's not good is that it's really not captured in any kind of formal way. We have 3 women who work in the department. 2 have worked in the department for a while. They do an amazing work, but most of their knowledge is in their head and through day-to-day operations. And I think long-term that could create an issue for the district, because God forbid any of them get sick, any of them retire, and certainly have at least 2 of them who are close to retirement age, that I think as a district, we need to look at how do we formalize that institutional knowledge so we can carry it. And then we can carry on, the department's practice. Very clear, and everyone that I spoke with said that department employees, these 3 women, frequently work beyond their contracted workday to address the needs of the district. And there are certainly critical times of year that happens more than not, but it happens often. The past 10 weeks that I've been there, I see people there very early in the morning, and they're well beyond their contracted work. And that says a lot for them, but I also think it says a lot for the needs of the department. Just wonder if in fact we have enough hands to do the work of the department and to create the kind of efficient practices and procedures that we need. The other need that came out of my conversation is that, again, a lot of this knowledge is informal. And it's written down through informal systems, through Google Docs. And at this point, we really don't have complementary software systems that have been implemented to support day-to-day work. So in other words, I'm sure you know this better than I do, that we have a system called Keystone, and then we have Frontline. And it's been my experience in speaking to people in my department, they really don't speak well to each other. So I'll give you an example. And this has happened 3 times since I've been in the position. And they happen to be all central office employees who came to me looking to know how many sick days they have, or how many vacation days they have. So the benefits person needs to look that up in her own informal system, which has, again, no criticize that's worked well. But in most districts, that's memorialized on someone's paycheck. And so it seems like there are software systems really benefit the district and provide more efficiency in that area. So the recommendations that I have that came out of this particular area is I would recommend that we re-examine and formalize clear, consistent systems of practice to ensure that institutional knowledge of the department is available to future employees. 2, to conduct a task analysis of the duties and responsibilities of 3 positions within the department. And in conjunction with Don and Craig, I've already begun to do that with the 3 employees. And so we're looking at that really critically and carefully, and I think we'll be close to finishing that fairly soon. Again, this was in the former slide, we need to consider software programs to shift really from utilizing informal department-created systems of conducting business. And finally, I think we need to really consider department reorganization by examining other district models. And again, I've begun to do that for a number of areas. I've been interviewing and speaking with other HR directors of school districts to try to compare the practices that we have in place to the practices that exist in other places. And again, not necessarily to say they're doing it better than us, but to really look at, all right, what else is out there and how can we improve our services to our constituents? So the next two areas really are probably the most significant of the assessment. And the first is staff recruitment. So this is a pretty scary area, so at the start of the school year, the district had unfulfilled positions in the areas of science, math, and English at the middle school and high school levels. Again, I've been in the business for 35 years. This is really impressive. And some of it is a reflection, I think, of our times. But some of it also, I guess I wonder, some of it may be a reflection of some of our recruitment practices. So we're fortunate enough, I think the district is fortunate, to have some incredibly dedicated teachers in these areas who really stepped up and have agreed to take on an extra class. Now, again, granted, they're being paid for that extra class, but that adds to their workload. And, thank God that we have those individuals who are willing to do that. The district would really be in a difficult place. But in my opinion, those efforts of those incredible teachers is really not sustainable. I think we really need to really think about our recruitment efforts and how do we recruit high quality science, math, and English teachers in other areas. Two, there continues to be staffing shortages in positions which are required to address the needs of students with disabilities, and in supervisory positions which ensure the safety of children recess and lunch. So I think the positions for students with disabilities is pretty clear. I need to address the supervisory position. Those are really critical positions. They people that work in the recess yard and lunchroom. We're looking at safety of children, and it's been impossible to fill those positions. And we, since in the past 10 weeks, we've tried some creative ways of recruiting those individuals, and we have some other ideas. But I think that's a big need for the principals. It weighs heavily on them to ensure that kids are being safely supervised at both of those periods. And some of these needs have been addressed with short-term, often costly solutions. And staffing shortages continually exist daily due to short-term and long-term elements. I'll give you an example. One of the when I went over to interview the principal at the high school, I was there, say, at 8 o'clock. My interview didn't begin with her until 9 o'clock. Well, she was running around the building looking to fill behind positions. And I think that occurs often, maybe even every day. And that's very tiring. And I'm sure very anxiety producing that you wonder every day whether or not you're going to be able to fill these jobs. District staff recruitment efforts have not been timely or rigorous, and this comes from the people I interviewed, placing the district in an uncompetitive position with other school districts around. So what I mean by this is that when I look at other school districts and I think as a system, we perhaps need to look at this, that we begin our recruitment efforts sometime in June, sometime during the month of June, sometime going into July. By that point, many other school systems have already begun to recruit high quality candidates, which places us really at a disadvantage to get the cream of the crop. So by the time we get around to interviewing and actually offering people positions, at least last summer, it was July into August. And given, we'll get into this hiring process next, given the cumbersome process that was identified to me through the assessment, that it's been very frustrating for many principals because you get through this cumbersome process and finally get to the point of checking references, which has taken a long time. And then by the time you get to that point, you offer the person the position, they've been scooped up by another district. So I think that I have some recommendations here. So I think we need to examine the systematic obstacles which interfere with early recruitment efforts for both annual and summer hiring. Give you a quick example around summer hiring. I was talking to Fred during my interview with him, and he said to me that he went on vacation, I don't know, it was in June, I guess, and all of the summer positions were filled. And he gets a call from my office. All of a sudden, they weren't filled. That many people, teachers and therapists, had vacated those jobs and got jobs in other systems. And it was primarily based on Fred's conversation, primarily based on what the pay differential. So again, I think we need to look at that, because what ended up happening is you ended up hiring through an agency, which is incredibly costly. So, I think one of the things I want to do going forward for the time in this time, to really identify what does that cost look like versus what we're paying those individuals. I think we need to re-examine and simplify the process for hiring day-to-day substitutes. Right now, we're using the same process to hire day-to-day substitutes as we are to hire long-term permanent employees. There's not a need, in my opinion, and I'm talking with Don and Craig about this, to have that same process. I think that hiring day-to-day substitutes is a commitment day-to-day. And the evaluation process of day-to-day substitutes occurs on a day-to-day basis. So I think we can probably do better in that area by just looking at the way we're recruiting. Broaden our recruitment efforts beyond school spring and Indeed. And those are the two sources that we currently use, which every school district uses. So we need to think out of the box, and we need to look at college searches, we need to look at townwide job fairs potentially, and some other areas that maybe we haven't thought about in order to really figure out how to get that cream of the crop to come to. Consider HR website changes, which we've already begun to do. If you look at our website now, you will see employment, the area of employment is broadly centered right in the center, first page of the website. And we've made some changes based on looking at other district websites. We're continuing to work with Jim around. I think we need to examine the pay scale, incentives, and bonus options offered by other local districts. So with Don and Craig's permission, I certainly can begin to do that and get some of that information to them. And then finally, Amy and Don are committed, as am I, to reinstitute the teacher-assisted training program, which will allow us to really get back to training individuals in the community and then potentially hiring them for our own. The next area is hiring. So again, the stakeholders indicated there's a need for a consistent and transparent hiring process for employees within and outside of the school system. The process was described to me as confusing, lengthy, just too many steps with insufficient, untimely attention given to checking professional records. And I already referred to that. By the time we get to the end of that process, the candidates are gone. Some stakeholders indicated that interview questions sometimes lack thoroughness, rigor. Several administrators discussed their frustration at losing quality candidates. So my recommendation for the hiring process is to really re-examine the processes with stakeholders with input and guidance, including interview format and related forms, reference checks, roles and responsibilities, and steps involved. So the way I envision this, and I've talked with Don and Craig about this, is forming a subcommittee with stakeholders. And we have some people who already volunteered to really look at the process and figure out how we can make it both rigorous but efficient. Consider an early job fair date for both certified and classified staff. So we will know early on, what positions we have and be really actively, passionately recruit for those positions. And I know this sounds contradictory, but a couple of principals talked about what other districts do is considering adding a demonstration lesson for hiring new teachers. And there's a way, I think there's a way we can fit that in with keeping it efficient. So I think that's something we need to look at as well. Last area is communication. And many stakeholders saying that our onboarding and offboarding was identified as an area needed by several employees. New employees do not receive consistent orientation and training. Again, a lot of the training has been offered by the HR department. I think sometimes it's more thorough than others based on what's happening in the department. Written procedures are not in place for new administrators, and building clerks have really not been trained in standard operating procedures in many years. So it's my understanding, 4 or 5 years ago, I have that about right, maybe longer, I don't know, that there was a point in August, or the beginning of the school year, where all building clerks came together, and we sort of got out of the summer mode and got into the work mode and reviewed all of the standard operating procedures, so everyone would start the year on the same page, and that hasn't happened in some time. So I think talking with Tammy and Greg and Don, I think we're ready to reconsider that. So clear onboarding and offboarding procedures would notify key departments of changes in the status of employees and activate or deactivate specific operations. So when a new employee comes on, we have a process where a number of departments are notified. They do what they need to do to welcome those employees, and when people leave, there's a process to deactivate them as a way of saying goodbye to them and take them off of our rolls. So in terms of communication, our recommendations are re-examine and consistently implement onboarding and offboarding procedures for all employees. So to have, again, system in place. I think the key here is around system. System in place, which is consistent. It happens with every employee that comes and leaves. There was a recommendation having a procedural manual for administrators, provide initial training and annual review opportunities, and then provide routine training at the start of the school year to building clerks to promote consistent practices among school officers. The last area is again, given the fact that I'm interim and still looking for someone to lead the department and long term, I really got into asking folks, what's the ideal profile for HR department leader? And it's very difficult because HR, as you know, includes a lot of knowledge in terms of business practices. And certainly that's really important. However, we're in an educational setting. Having knowledge of the educational field is also important. So I'll give you a sense of my background. I worked for the private sector for a while, so I had some experience in HR. When I got to West Warwick, I was the special ed director, and then I took on some responsibilities in HR. So I learned HR as being an educator. So I think we need to look at what the background is of the person you bring on. The other recommendation is that the next leader really needs to support a collaborative consultant model in managing department employees. Again, I can't emphasize enough that these 3 ladies not only are dedicated, but are very smart. And they have kept the district moving forward. And I think that the person who comes in next really needs to be respectful of their knowledge and collaborate with them and not have a mindset where they're the boss and they're the employees. Certainly, as a department leader, sometimes the decisions finally come down to you. But I think I found with these three women that operating in a collaborative model, in consulting with them and making decisions together has really brought us forward even in a short period of time. I think the next person really needs to establish recruitment and hiring as a high priority in practice. I was actually surprised, based on my prior experiences in another district, some of the tasks that former administrators were involved in. And I think that as we do an analysis of the responsibilities of the three people that I work with, I think we need to really look at, what other responsibilities are of a clerical nature. And then in terms of the department leader, there may be some other areas that those big picture items that we really need that person to focus on, such as hiring and recruiting. The next bullet is to be able to mediate conflict between staff members at the building level. So, conflict occurs, as we all know. And sometimes it occurs between people in the same bargaining unit. And, Tammy and Kelly have very tough jobs. And if you have two people from the same bargaining unit having difficulties, Kelly and Tammy needs to represent both of them. So I think that have someone who has the ability to work with people to help them resolve conflicts and come to some resolution to get back to the business of education. Someone with those skills, I think, would be really very helpful. Someone that could be a resource to building principals and central office staff. Someone who understands school contracts and school climate. So, I think that's where the experience in education is really important, because we are a unique entity. Understanding how schools operate, understanding that there needs to be, in order for schools to work well, there needs to be a collaborative relationship between bargaining units, between unions and management. It's really critical. Work together in order to move the district forward. I think that mindset is important. And finally, I think next leader, and the people in my department agree with this, that we need to model and enforce a growth mindset. So no longer can we just do business as usual. As we go forward, we need to continue to assess practices and procedures that we have in place, the most efficient practices that are out there. There are other ways of doing business, improve our service to the district. So before I give my final thoughts, does anyone have any questions? And I've mentioned these ladies before. Diane Fallon, Terry Bruno, Allie Bruno. Spelled the name wrong. It's A-L-L-I-E, I think. Two L's in it.
You shouldn't have brought it in. You shouldn't have brought it.
I know it. She brought it up to me and I thought I did. So anyway, those three ladies, they're just amazing. I showed them this before. I presented it to you tonight, and I just want to publicly thank them for welcoming me into the district and the department. Lots of questions.
You start with Mr. Pearson, any comments?
I don't have any questions per se, but comments is around, done so great job. I'm glad you were able to take, a fresh set of eyes on ways to improve. Getting any department change is fast. So I really thank you for putting this together, and I hope we can take what you're doing and again move forward.
I appreciate that. And, I know what you mean. I think I worked in other situations where there's been resistance even to assessment, but there really wasn't any resistance at all. People were incredibly cooperative, incredibly free speaking with me, knowing that I would maintain confidentiality, so they really opened up. And I think I got a really good picture of what some key stakeholders really felt were needed in order to bring a great department and make it even better. Thank you. Oh, no.
I thank you very much. This was very comprehensive. I really, and like you said, that's common. They step up, they help wherever they can. And I hope that this does move forward. Really, it's done a very, very good job.
Thank you.
Thank
And, some of the work has already begun, and I would see that continuing. There's a lot of momentum now. So I'm hoping over the next, few months, the time that I'm still here, we can make some progress together.
So I think this is great. It's the reason that when we're employees or colleagues or teachers, we all want to make sure that the first thing that comes in with the job is orientation and the feeling of, I understand to do. It makes us continuing to improve, right? It also sets the tone for professionalism as well. This is great work. I think it's a great start. I'd like to see this continue and somehow a lot of it. It's going to be a lot of work, but I think it's a really great motivator for any employee or anyone that's doing whatever job, right? To be able to feel valued, understood, be part of the conversation, and absolutely the ability to be able to have a model and foster growth mindset within a department. That speaks volumes, because if we all can collaborate all together and kind of like feel that we're all working together towards the grandest picture or the grander goal, I think that puts us in a position to be competitive. And absolutely, obviously, like with any company, right, you always want to make sure that you stay competitive with the other companies that do the same services you do, so that you always get the top talent to be able to want to be. Time is of the essence, as always. It doesn't matter to what organization you work for. And I'm really glad that this is implemented. I'm sure it's a lot of work, and I thank you for that. And I'd like to see, if not all, most of it.
Thank you.
Just want to again thank you for this work. Appreciate your leadership. The biggest thing that I noticed, and what I so important, is the collaboration you did, the interviews that you did. People were able to open up and actually feel comfortable enough. And it's a credit to all those that work in that department that they are willing to change. It's hard when you've been here a long time doing something the same way to reconsider it and say, look at it with fresh eyes. And so I want to thank all the stakeholders that worked with you to try to figure out how we can be better at what we do. And it's sort of like, so many processes in Coventry on it's the word of mouth thing or the institutional knowledge that's not written down when someone leaves. And so that it has to be in some ways set in place. So I hope you're able to afford a software program that somehow is able to do this better and actually write the policy like a handbook of policy, so that, like you say, people retire, people get sick. So it's really, really important to have policies in place that make a lot of sense and best practices of the department. And you have to get the tools to do that as well, which is software, and that can be expensive. So I'm very hopeful that that can happen. So thank you for your leadership, and you're paving the way for the new person that hopefully you can hire.
And I'll communicate your sentiments to Terry and Ally and Di. Thank you.
Exceptional work.
Thank you.
So just to wrap this up, so first I want to thank Paul, his department, all the people he interviewed. I think the presentation was well done. Our intent is to come before the committee again on the next agenda with an HR topic. Because for us to be able to put some of these things in action, we're gonna have to start moving forward on our department in terms of how we function, but also how we lead that department. And we have some ideas on how we're gonna do that. But before we went too quickly with making changes, or making suggestions, we wanted to make sure that you understood sort of our current state, where we're at. We do a lot of things really well, but it's not a bad thing to be able to focus on some things that, you know, institutionally people feel need to be improved. And I think we have, like Paul said, we've already started some of this work, so be on the lookout for another agenda item on this topic.
Before we move on, is there anybody in the public that would like to make any comments or ask any? Seeing none, so we can move on. So, next agenda item is the local advisory board presentation. I believe.
As they make their way to the podium, so I'll just kind of kick you off by letting you know that I've had phone conversations and email conversations with Renee Smith for the last like 3 or 4 years, but we never actually physically met. And I think it was the unified basketball game. She came up to me and she said, "I'm Renee Smith," and I was like, "Oh my goodness, we've been talking to each other for 3 years." And I met you. She said, "Well, I'm the new president of the Special Education Local Advisory Board, and you know, we have some things we want to do. We have some ideas, and we'd like to, you know, come to the school committee." And I was like, "Yes, we'll make that happen." As you know, we had some changeover in our department, you know, and we switched directors. We have an interim director, Fred kicked in, and then once we kind of established some stability, I went to Fred, Nally, and Denise, and I said, "So now we need to move forward, because I promised Mr. Smith that we would move forward, and now's the time to do it." So Fred and Renee communicated with each other and put together a few items for you to presentation, and then 2 items that you will be voting on.
Thank you, Don. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I really appreciate this opportunity to present yet another part of special education to you tonight. The RAMP regulations require that every school district as an advisory committee consisting of parents of students who both have disabilities and without disabilities to provide guidance to the special education department with regard to planning programs, interpretation of the trends and requirements. It's sometimes a bit of a dilemma for districts. Sometimes it's an expectation that we have an active local advisory board, but it's not something we control. So I appreciate the opportunity tonight to introduce or reintroduce in some cases Renee Smith. And I can't emphasize enough how grateful I am that Renee has revived our local advisory committee. It's a huge time commitment. It requires a lot of dedication. It's multifaceted, and it's really a pleasure to be working with Renee, and also want to extend same sentiment to the other members of the board who couldn't be here tonight. So we're going to give you a presentation about what local advisory entails, and then the second part, the next agenda item is for the regulations. The board of the LAC has to be appointed by the school committee, and the bylaws also go by majority.
I'm a little short. I don't know if this is working great.
It is.
All right, you can go to the. Again, thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. As Fred mentioned, this is actually a Rhode Island law that we need to have a special education advisor. So a little bit about what it's parents, professionals, people, community, basically anybody that has any sort of an interest in special education and helping students that receive special education. Those are the people that are welcome to be part of this committee, whether they're part of the board members or just somebody that attends and tries to collaborate. So what we do, basically we inform people, guardians, different special education issues that we see just out there in the world of school. We share information on state regulations, anything, you know, IDEA, what the requirements. A lot of parents, when they first, especially a lot of parents, when they first get into this, they have no idea what the laws are. They don't know what they're supposed to do, not do, and so on. So really, it's educating on that end, educating parents. And we do have to, by law, have 4 meetings, so 4 structured meetings a year. We can have more, but that is what the requirement is. So we have these workshops, meetings, informational sessions, again, to kind of help the community, help parents, anybody that is interested. And we are a resource about their child's educational needs. So right now we're pretty slim. So what happened when we tried to kind of get together last year, we had a few people. That's the difficulty of having this parent-led advisory committee, is that you have people coming in, right? People get busy, they may not want to stay, or they want to come in just for a short period and so on. So currently I'm the chair. If we can get a co-chair, that would be great. That would be a lot of help. Karen Haskell is our secretary, and we have a co-secretary and finance manager if we ever end up having some fundraising of funds or whatnot. So that is Carol there. Bethany Chatterley also has attended full meetings, so she's one of our members. So again, as we grow, we certainly have people that don't want to be part of the overall board, but want to be a member and attend meetings. So I'm going to read the mission statement that we put together. So it's to encourage honest and effective communication, understanding, and mutual respect in a supportive relationship, inclusive of all students, parents, guardians, caregivers, and the community, in an effort to ensure the delivery of appropriate and timely services to students with disabilities. So as I have here, these are 4 events. We're still, the last 2, we're still trying to coordinate location for, but we have coming up next week the Black Social Night, which is meet and greet. Then we have basics of IUP and 504 processes, introduction to unified sports, and actually I've been working with Christine Hoskins, so it's not just unified sports, but it's a whole unified program as she's spreading that out through all the schools in the district, as well as at the end of the year. I know that Brad did this last year, and having some sort of a transition program. We want to expand that more than just transition out of high school, but transition through special education through the different large transitions in the school. So for example, it's really difficult, we're experiencing this now, to go through from elementary to middle school is a big transition, and then onto high school is a big transition as well. So again, as I mentioned, I have a flyer that we've been sending out to all the schools. Everybody is welcome to come to the high school. We're going to figure out how we can have some snacks or whatnot, but it's kind of going to be more of an informal meet and greet to hopefully, celebrate the induction of the LAC, but also to try to get more members in. So we definitely need more people, as Fred mentioned. We need people that are both, part of a school committee that's interested, somebody that is themselves has a disability, and so on. So we want to get a good mix of people. It's just letting people know that we're here and getting the interest. And I think that's it, right? Next slide, I think, is just questions.
I guess we'll start with Mr. Pearson.
No questions. Thank you for this. It's good because It's not that it's been quiet, but I haven't heard much from the LAC. It may be just because of. So I thank you for this information. I'm going to try and make it. Socialize. No, I appreciate this. It's good to see this becoming more active. Thank you.
Thank you for this. I echo Mr. Pearson. It's nice to see that, it's becoming more active. I'm sure, past couple of years with COVID and everything is kind of like at a standstill. Picking up, and maybe as a community member, I'm for it. Mrs. Sturz,
I think this is great. Great program. I'm glad to see that it's back up again as well. And I'm definitely going to try to make November push. Thank you for this.
From what I understand, I'm not sure if more than 2 of you can be at the meeting at the same time. It's a quorum, right?
Well, we can go, we just can't talk.
Oh,
right. Yeah.
Okay.
You'll have to be in the other end.
Yeah, you can be. And I'm coming off.
Thank you.
My comments are, I'm really excited to see it, maybe get more. It's so difficult to keep people on boards. You'll have like the ups and downs kind of thing. And so when I first came on committee, I think the LAC was very active. Just had a big board, and I was amazed by those meetings. I used to go to them all the time because as a parent in the district with regular I literally had no idea what Coventry actually did. So that was really eye-opening, and the parents around the table, I'm not sure if you still do this or plan to do this, but it really was like the president, the chair of the committee over those few years that was really, really active. Basically, they started the meeting with, not like criticism, but all the positive things that were happening for their student, their child in the district. And it was just amazing to me. It was amazing. And I just learned so much about special needs that maybe I wouldn't have got just sitting here because you just sometimes don't hear it. And so it was an incredible experience for me that I really, really enjoyed and loved to be, participate in. So, and like I said, it's gone up and down over the years. There's been some times it's been stronger, but I understand the dilemma because even our PTAs, our PTOs, there'll be, events and stuff that, the board, basically you get burned out, unfortunately. But I always enjoyed those meetings. And so I wish you the best. In fact, I think I even worked on bylaws at one point. I was on the bylaws committee because I had so much experience with bylaws. And so I was kind of like, run this with us. I don't know how often you have to do the bylaws, but I don't know what the requirement is, but it was several years ago that I worked. So, like I said, some of the people I met, parents, were just an amazing group of people, just amazing people. And so I really enjoyed it. And I wish you the very best of luck getting this up and running.
Thank you. I appreciate the feedback, especially the positive aspect. It is very easy as a parent, even with a child with a disability, to be positive because not everything's perfect. Not everything can go your way, and it's easy to get together and use it as a complete session.
Exactly.
To say this isn't going well. And the focus really is not going to be on me in the sense of everybody is not coming here to talk about them and their problems. It's a we discussion. What can we do? What things can we make better? So.
There were many meetings that I'm kind of a teary person anyway, but just the positive responses from parents, it was just like, I was brought to tears and totally amazed by what the service is here. But like I said, I looked forward to it. I thought it was just a wonderfully important. So thank you.
Thank you for this presentation, and I wish you all the best in rallying up some people.
Thank you.
Anybody else have comments?
No, I just want to thank both of them for pulling this together. I think I talked to Fred 2 weeks ago, and they were able to pull this together pretty quickly. And this leads into the next agenda item for the membership, the bylaws and the appointing of the members.
Anything from the public? Before we move to the next step. Well, thank you so much for coming and presenting, and like I said, I think you'll succeed.
Thank you.
So, our next agenda item is the appointment of the advisory committee on special education and the approval of the bylaws according to Rhode Island regulation 300.900 discussion and vote. So, did you want to take that? Bylaws or?
I think there's two separate votes. I think one of them is the appointment of the committee, and the second one is the bylaws, but there's nothing I need to add to it. In your packet, you have the bylaws, you have the committee members, so there's nothing I need to speak to, but you can move forward.
You ready, Julie? Okay, so on the first one, to approve the appointment of the advisory committee.
I make a motion to approve the appointment of the advisory committee, special education as presented.
I second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-0. I didn't ask the public, right? I voted, but we'll ask it on the next. So is there a motion to approve bylaws as presented?
Make a motion to approve the bylaws according to the Rhode Island Reg 300.900 as presented.
I second that.
And before I call for the vote, any further discussion or questions from the public? Seeing nothing, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, any opposed? Seven, motion carries 4-0. So moving on to item number E, I believe on our agenda, it's the arts discussion.
So in your packet, there was a flyer, give you a general snapshot of what this is about. And the reason why we put this agenda item on, the next agenda item on, and there's actually one in the superintendent's report, is that there's been a number of grants made available to communities in Rhode Island. And they live in a few different categories. This one is about arts. The next one is about this equity initiative, and then the third one in the superintendent's report is about technology. But the reason why I brought them to the school committee is because the building committee has been looking at different school building construction projects. And Mario Carreno from the Department of Ed, the Chief Operating Officer, has been attending our meetings. And one of the things we've talked about is the amount of money that's been made available to Coventry and how we could use some of those funds in this grant, the next grant, and the third grant to offset some of the projects that we were looking to do in the last building initiative and things that we need to do moving forward. So in this particular grant, this arts grant, Coventry received $140,000. We have to spend the money by the end of June 2023. It could be done in a few different ways. We have the funds, right? It's not an application process. This one is, we've been allotted that amount of money, but we put forward the projects that we want to use. So one project, this is an example, it's not done, but one example could be, our auditorium at the high school is old and has a lot of problems. It has sound issues, it has lighting issues, it's aesthetically old, needs updating. That is a place where the performing arts happen, not only for the school, but also for the community. So if we wanted to, we could propose using these funds to improve that space. that would be an opportunity to us to do some improvements that are capital improvements, but using funds from a different funding source rather than putting it as part of a bond. Another option could be to do smaller projects. We could even decide to do a mix of projects where we do something big, and then we could say to teachers, we're going to create a half a dozen small competitive grant opportunities for them to make proposals for things that they can do in their classrooms. It doesn't have to be just, paper to pencil or it could be performing arts, it could be graphic arts, it could be digital arts, there's a variety of different ways that this money can be spent. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention because over the next number of months, as we start moving through this process, especially knowing that this one is due in June, there's going to be a point where I come forward and I say to you, this is how we're looking to spend that money, and I want to get your feedback. But before I get to that point, I wanted you to know this is what the Arts Grant Initiative is, and Coventry was a recipient. We weren't a top recipient, but we were right on the cusp because I think the top 10, the top recipients, Cumberland came in at 151, and we're just under that at 140. So for our district, we did, I think, pretty well.
Any questions for Mr. Powell? Yes, sir?
No questions.
No questions.
No questions.
Taking public. Seeing none, we can move on. Next one.
Next one is the Facilities Equity Initiative. This grant is a little bit different. This one is competitive in the sense of we have to submit an application by December 1st. We don't have a specific dollar amount assigned to our community based on a per pupil or anything like that. We write a grant, we make a request. It could be multiple requests. It doesn't have to be just one thing. It can be 2 or 3 things. And then there's a committee of people that would decide what is funded and what's not. Like I said, Mario Moreno is very involved with our building committee. He has recommended that we put a few different things forward here. So I'll give you an example, similar to the example I gave you on the last one. It's been said numerous times that our high school gymnasium is needed of help. And it was pointed out on our accreditation. It's been pointed out by all our athletes and the coaches, and our gym needs some help. So if you look at it in the sense of, we definitely need a new floor. We can't be sanded and refinished really anymore. Right now, Russ and his team of people are patching where we can. But we also need new bleachers. The bleachers we have are old, they're heavy, and to move them in and out is very difficult. It probably also needs aesthetically to be updated in terms of color and lighting and things of that nature. So we could theoretically put that into this grant as a proposal that we'd like to do some work in our gym. And we could list them all separately. We can bundle it up as one package. But this is another opportunity where we could make an improvement. Another example would be, it's come up also in accreditation and a few times since that our science labs at the high school don't meet the basic requirements for some of the lab sciences that our kids need when they decide to study science in college. And so we could use some of this money to fund some of those types of projects. And the reason why I brought up the high school 2 or 3 different times is depending on where the school building committee goes, most likely the project is going to be an elementary project. There may be some middle school components, but our high school is not going to be getting a huge amount of money most likely, but this is an opportunity to address some individual needs at the high school. And that's why I kind of called it an offset. We can use these funds to make improvements. Our high school is not going anyplace, so let's start investing. And then, when the next capital budget opportunity comes around, whether it's a bonding opportunity or a revolving fund or something, we could continue to invest money in the high school. So this one is a competitive one. We do have to write it up in the community. Similar to the school building committee bond initiative, there are different incentives. So if you look at the incentives, one of them, for example, is if you partner with a contractor that is minority or women owned, you get an additional %. So this one, actually, if you hit all the boxes, you can get up to 80% reimbursement. But it does also mean that the town and the community has to have some investment as well. So this one isn't like free and clear. There's a responsibility for us to pay a small share. So I just wanted you to make you aware of that. Phil Conti, who is with Studio Jade, I've already forwarded him the application here, and I think he's going to be very helpful in looking at how we can get that filled out so it's competitive. And I also have already talked to Russ about having his team begin to collect some information about what it would cost to replace a floor, bleachers, painting, what it would cost to do an updated sound system or a lighting system at the high school. I'll give you an example, and this is the last thing I'll say about this. I was at the high school, and Todd, who's one of our electricians, he had come to me talking about the light dimmers at the high school not working well. And I said to him, so what's involved in the repair? And he said, well, it's not just replacing the dimmers. The lighting box is so old that he is fearful that if he gets in there to make repairs to the dimmers, that he could potentially break something that is old and brittle, that it then becomes very difficult to get the parts to repair that something. And this would maybe give us an opportunity to sort of like really do it the right way versus doing like a Band-Aid approach where we cross our fingers that, if we fix one thing, we don't break something else.
Hopefully get it. Any questions?
No questions.
No questions.
No questions.
Nothing from the audience? So we can move on. Thank you for that. Sounds wonderful. Okay, so now we are to the item G, which is the approval of the job description for our second shift maintenance coordinator.
So if you remember a few meetings back, we had talked about a position that does not exist in our SRP union classifications. And it was a position that we were going to be able to fund using available funds based on some vacancies, and that we were looking to have a second shift maintenance person who would be able to support our second shift workers. We have a number of people who work in the late afternoon and the evening in the different buildings, and having somebody who works a second shift who's available to support them was a need. It's been a need for a long time. So I think, if I recall correctly, that people were in support of that, but I promised that when I bring a job description to you. So this is the job description that we came up with. Paul helped me quite a bit. Tammy also was part of that conversation. We actually looked at some other job descriptions from other communities, similar jobs but not the same, added our own wants and needs to it, wordsmith some other things. So this is the job posting that we came up with for that position. So I just wanted to share that back.
Any questions for Mr. Powell on this? Yes?
No questions.
No questions.
Anything from the public? Seeing nothing, we can move on to
The second one you have to approve. Do you have to approve the job description too?
Yes.
yes.
So you can take a
So
vote.
is there to approve the approval of the second shift maintenance coordinator?
Make a motion to approve the second shift coordinator position.
Second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Next item, motion carries unanimously. This new agenda's a little tricky. We're getting used to it. All right, moving on to the approval of the MOU for second shift maintenance coordinator, especially.
So this is connected to the item you just voted on, and so and the next meeting, I'm gonna put an agenda item about MOUs or MOAs in general, so we could talk about how we want to handle them going forward. But for this particular one, I wanted to get this job description and all this tidied up so we can move forward on this position. But essentially, occasionally, there are things that happen between contract negotiations that require us to go to the union and ask them for some sort of agreement. And so this position did not exist. The second shift coordinator position did not exist. There was obviously no job description. There was no pay. It didn't exist. So I met with Tammy and Kelly, and we agreed to create a position, and then when we negotiate the contract, we'll put that position.
Any questions from the committee, Mr. Pearson?
No question.
No. Mrs. Joseph?
No questions.
And I have none either. So motion to approve that? I make a motion to approve the MOU, second shift maintenance coordinator as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Any questions from the public before I call for the vote? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
You guys have it, motion carries. Moving on to I, which is the finance director's report.
I'm going to turn it over to Harold.
Good evening. The finance director's report is concentrating on basically on the 3 months that we have are reporting to you tonight. We're just concentrating on some of the topics, which are insurance, out of district tuition, technology, transportation, and utilities. Those are some of the areas that sort of popped out when we were doing the 3 months. I think it's right there in front of you. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask anyone.
Thank you. Anything, Mr. Pearson?
No, just thank you again for achieving your reports.
I have no questions. Thank you for. Mrs. Joseph?
No questions. Thank you.
I have no questions. Again, thank you for putting this together. I mean, the only thing that jumped out at me was the expenditures to date on salaries, but I think it's pretty good on that. Okay, anything from the public? Seeing none, I guess we can move on. Yes, we're J, and it's superintendent's report.
It is. There are 2 things on the superintendent's report that we discussed today. And if Mr. Pearson or if Arnold or Trace Future want to add to that, they're welcome to do so because they're both serving on the building committee with me. So the first thing I just wanted to mention is the building committee has been meeting weekly. For the last 3 weeks, we have visited schools, we have toured schools, we listened to Studio Jade give us proposals and ideas and fine tune, but giving him feedback. So we're kind of moving forward on that. The last meeting, we really spent most of our time looking at a project that would be on the Flat River site across the street from this building in the current location of the annex and where the school department building is. And it would be an elementary school with, if we move forward with this plan, with 2 schools, Hopkins Hill and Tyo going in with the potential for an additional 3rd school, which would possibly be Black Rock. But we can't do 3 schools at one time because we probably don't have the funding to do that based on what the town has said their capacity is. So that's sort of the project we've landed on at the moment. I don't want to say too much more because it seems like every time we meet, things tweak a little bit. And I don't want to say something that's then going to be, different. I also wanted to report before I give anybody a chance to speak on it is stage 1 was approved and that's a good thing. So thank you to Mr. Levis who pulled stage 1 together and it was approved. And I had Kathy sign the letter. So we just need to get Dr. Dixon and we should be good. And stage 2, we have a checklist of things that we have to address. That checklist has already been shared with Studio Jade. So when they start working on stage 2, they know what needs to be included. Anything I missed that needs to be added?
Maybe just briefly that I think the plan, and they're starting to pull that together, is to, the town council has made it clear we want to do a couple options. So Studio Jade has put together a couple scenarios, I think 3 at this point, one of them is an outlier. But but expect that to come either before school committee separately, or there's talk of a joint school committee town council meeting to look at the different scenarios and, get a pulse check of what it's feeling about those so we can move forward aggressively to meet our timelines.
I kind of missed where the site is. Could you just tell us again?
Well, one site they're looking at is the annex building across the way. Seeing how that building is currently occupied by different uses, there's some town departments there, teen center, police is using it, or school administration. It's going to require some coordination and some planning on the town side as to what they're going to think. We've heard that the library would like a facility, so move out of this building, free up space, or maybe the town offices. But they don't have a plan yet, so it's considered.
And the reason why the Flat River site is desirable is that the land is already prepared for a building. All they'd have to do is demolition.
Yeah.
But if you recall, the piece of property over by the current middle school that we were looking at, the other project, that's all wooded area. So there's a lot of excavation that has to happen there. And so we would save a little bit of money because this site's really already prepared. And like I said, only demolition. We don't have to worry about anything else. And it's a 17-acre lot. It's narrow, but it's long. And so Phil's looking at ways to design a building that fits there appropriately, has appropriate space for bus drop off, pickup, car pickup, play areas. So that's his challenge. He has to map that out. The other thing that Mr. Peterson was talking to me, I think is internal, inside, and there's also outside, right? We have a community garden, we have a gazebo, and we have a bus depot. So those are the other things that we consider. I was thinking, like,
One of the other things that also that not me reminding each other things as we go. The other thing that's ideal about using a site that's not currently occupied by a school is you don't have to pay for relocation, temporary relocation of the school, the students and the staff, equipment. So you save some money there. I think Phil was initially looking at Oak Haven, but then the reality of what Oak Haven is currently made that not possible. To relocate like one school if you
Two.
well, you could do two.
Yeah.
But it's already up. So looking at a clean site, so to speak, or a site that's not utilized as a school.
What about the library? What have they decided, the library out?
There's talk of using the old police station site.
Oh, yeah.
That's only talk.
They can't put anything else.
Clearly.
Because of the love. But yeah, that's like a great experience.
We still have a
Definitely
lot-
don't want to put archives in the flood zone again.
Yeah.
In this. It's happened.
My second item was, it goes with the other two that I spoke about earlier. And the reason why this one got tucked into the superintendent's report and wasn't outside of that is because this was still kind of coming to me. So I didn't really have a ton of details until I was able to kind of call it together. I was worried that if I made it as a standalone agenda item, I wouldn't really have a whole lot to report. But I actually got some more. So this is a press release that came with it, but essentially Department of Ed has launched some funding for 21st century technology and equipment. This is also money that is just going to be given to us. There is no competitive process. There's no, there is an application.
That's
but
nice.
But money. So I don't have it right in front of me, and I should, so I apologize, but I think the whole amount coming to us is in the mid $400,000 range, which is significant. And of that, about $114,000 is specifically dedicated to career and technical education. And the reason why that's the case is because when they pulled this money together, some of it came from CTE funds that the state had. And to build this pot of money, they pulled it together. So, but if you look through the article, you know, when people see technology, they automatically think of computers. Like, oh, we have to get computers. But if you look at it and you look what's available, there are other things that we could buy that, again, would offset some other things. So for example, when they launched the equity initiative, I had gone to Calicut Middle School in Central Falls, and they had used some technology money to get these touch screens for every single classroom. So that's how they use some of their technology money. But this is also equipment, so they got furniture. And so they could buy furniture for classrooms. And the thing is, with this particular, if you buy things for one space, but then you end up collapsing or moving that space someplace else, you can just move everything to the other space. So if we bought furniture for, I'm making it up, Hopkins Hill, and then we decided to combine Hopkins Hill and Tioga to a new school, we just move all that furniture over to the school. Or it's all mobile, it all can go. If we decide to do science labs at the high school and we have money for some part of the project, but we don't have enough money to do other parts, we can get the lab tables, we can get some of the other equipment required through this grant. So there's a nice opportunity to get a little bit more improvements done using this one in conjunction with the other two. I just wanted you to be aware of all that. That's my report.
Any questions for Charles? Yes, sir?
Just a reminder, this was a sentence. We don't have to
Do anything. 100%. Thanks.
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you.
This is good. Any questions either? So we can move to item 11, which is the citizens' comments. Are there any citizens present who would like to comment? Seeing no hands raised, I think we can go to our schedule. I would like to entertain a motion to schedule our next meeting. Go ahead.
I make a motion to schedule the next school committee meeting, November 10th, 2027.
second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then finally adjournment. I have 8:10. Is there a motion to adjourn?
And Chair, I can make a motion to adjourn at 8:10.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.